Why does it still show that even though I don't have? How do I get rid of the? There we go. I don't know why it's in pounds instead of US dollars. It's $1,600, $1,599 US dollar. US based. I'm not anywhere else, so that's interesting. I'm gonna give it a few before we start talking about the cards. Need to wait a few. Hopefully my neck doesn't kill me. I bet you my daughter comes in here right now. Yeah.
Popsicles.
Yeah, after stream. You guys can make them now. I got a stream. Well, then we can make them tomorrow. You're not going to be able to eat them tonight. Let me get done streaming. Nope. Not even opened. Uh-huh. No, no. Hey, Dad's streaming, baby.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello.
The second I start streaming. Every single time. Go. Thank you. Every time. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to do segments to capture. What's up, Doughboy? Just getting ramped up. I'm going to give it like 5 minutes before he starts so people don't miss out on the spiel. Dude, I have watched all these. Our reviewers. All of them. Every single one, an article or a video. And I've probably watched 20 videos, 10, 15 videos. And freaking probably just as many articles. Hurt, I was kind of in the same mindset, but I'll be honest. They're going to get some of my money on this one, and that is solely based off of Esofox's Epos Fox. I never say his name right. His video and what he was showing performance-wise, not only for people that are doing video editing. Now, if you use Photoshop or you use like Premiere or something, there's almost no change whatsoever. But I use Davinci Resolve and the Affinity Photo and stuff, and huge performance increases for using those kind of video editing things. We won't know more about RDNA 3 for another couple of weeks, and then when those benchmarks come out, that'll be even more interesting. I'm not buying anything right away. I'm probably not going to wait till, I'm probably waiting till March. Somebody did reach out to me earlier that said they need help building a PC and they need a gaming PC sooner than later. They are a streamer. I don't do that much anymore, but they do live close enough to me so I don't have to mess with the shipper. The reason I don't build PCs for people is I do not want to mess with UPS or FedEx. They fetched up a couple PCs, and I will never. No, just not worth it. It's too much of a pain in the butt. Used all the boxing, the packaging, the whole 9 yards. I'm like, oh no, it wasn't the right the right stuff. And then all of a sudden, in came Corsair, and there's like, yeah. The biggest deal breaker for me is because of DisplayPort 1.4. 1 year from now, RDNA 3 will work with new monitors without. That is one of the biggest ones that we have, but we're also going to have to look at how much those monitors are going to cost. It's like when HDMI 2.1 came out, and the 4K monitors with the HDMI 2.1 that's not used, and they originally started out at ungodly, insane amounts of money. like what, a 28-inch 4K HDMI 2.1 was like 16 or 1700 bucks. A 32-inch one going for $3,000. I think a lot of the manufacturers are wickedly out of touch with the current economy and how much money people do or do not have. You look at, and we're not going to focus on like AMD and NVIDIA and all that stuff right now from a financial standpoint per se, what their performances are doing on the market, because AMD, their new stuff isn't selling. I think we're going to see a price drop to help move the merchandise, because what happens with the new AMD Ryzen 7000 series CPUs, you have to get an all new motherboard, you have to get new RAM, and you're going to probably, with the power supplies, and people are like, you don't have to, and they show that the RTX 4090 will work with an 850. As long as you don't overclock it, you'll be just fine. But I don't want to mess with the cable, the four adapter cable. I want a PCIe 5 compliant power supply with 12-pin cable, so there's less weight, less cable management, and all that other stuff. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm interested to see what we get out of the display port for 1.4 if it comes out on time. Because as we've discovered in the past, it doesn't matter if you get HDMI 2.1 or not on the cards, which have been out for a couple of years. The monitors are slow to come out with it. I still can't believe we can go to the store and 99% of the monitors out there are 1080p. I would think by now that majority of the monitors should be a 1440 resolution or better, but that's not the case. You go to Costco, you go to Walmart, you go to Samsung, to Sam's Club or any of those places, the general stores, not like Best Buy or something, but yeah, and they're all 1080p, and it's just like, unless I absolutely have to, I don't do anything at 1080p on the PC. And yeah, so that's the biggest one. But what I want to do tonight is, since there is so many different sources out there, a lot of them are on the same page, a lot of them have the same information. I just kind of want to go through it. I don't expect to spend hours on this or anything else. Just talking about a few things. I'm going to do reactionary, which is not something I normally do, but we're going to go through a couple of videos. I liked 3 videos in particular. One from Apos Fox, his information on how the card, the 4090, greatly improves the efficiency of video editing, encoding, streaming benefits, things like that. Steve and the Gamers Nexus guys did a fantastic breakdown video on the Founders Edition, and then I never say Der 8 Hour. I think he's German. He always does really good videos. He did a really good video breakdown on how the power changes could be more beneficial. They didn't have to release it as power hungry as it was. Instead of a 450 watt requirement, they could have dropped it down to probably a 300, 350. If they would have done 350, just 100 watt drop, which was about a 6% performance cut, they could have gone a thinner card. The demand for a new power supply wouldn't have been as high, just a PCIe 5 compliant one. But and then the Digital Foundry did a really good job of breaking that down, but they got really, really into the weeds on the technical side of it. So when I get this all done, I'm gonna take snippets of this, put this over on my YouTube channel, and have all the links and stuff for what I think is relevant, for what I think was helpful, for everyone to go review. At the end of the day, what I want to do is make sure people aren't going out and just buying it because they think that this is a card that they have to have, because it's the flavor of the month. I know it's just based on a couple people's comment hurts. I'm not giving NVIDIA any more money, Daylight saying here that he's going to wait for the RDNA 3. Right now I run primarily NVIDIA. I do have an RDNA 2 card in a gaming system, like kids gaming system. Well, I don't know if it's my kids or my wife's. They keep flipping them back and forth. And it hasn't won over yet, because I firmly believe with our current technologies, there's absolutely no reason for us to need both a gaming and a streaming system. They should be able to handle it all in one. The 5950X, what I'm running now with the 3090, and it came close. But as I found out running games like Grounded, there's so much going on. Even if you lower the graphics to medium and Grounded, because of all the grass and everything else on there, it just didn't work out. But some of what Epos Vox, whatever his name is, talked about, along with the work that OBS did directly with NVIDIA to gain a 40% performance boost to gaming and streaming or whatever you're doing on the same system, was pretty insane, and is actually more than 40%. So because that's not there yet using the AV1, Intel is using a version of the AV1, and it's nowhere near as good. I mean, you get a little uplift. I'm hopeful that Intel and their ARC series, they stay by their words and start developing that and put some resources into it. So in the next couple of years, there's going to be more healthy competition. I like the fact that they're on the market. They're doing okay because they're cheap. You're getting $200 to $300 cards from Intel, which you're not getting right now from NVIDIA, and you're not getting really from AMD. And a lot of people are on a budget. But again, I think we're going to see price drops because the market's just not going to sustain the pricing that they want. Will we see the $1,600 4090 FE drop? Hey, Dane. No, we're just getting started. I like to give it like 10 or 15 minutes before I actually spin into the discussions. Yeah. So, yeah, I still think we're going to see a price drop somewhere between $50 and $100 per card. How's it going, man? So you'll see during the course of this conversation, I'm going to kind of cut over from the talking to those of you that are in chat. It's not a lot since I wish I would have stuck with this. I might have had better success by now, but it is what it is. And I'll start talking kind of more geeky because I do plan on taking this VOD, downloading it, cutting it up, and dropping bits throughout the week onto the YouTube channel, trying to drive some traffic that way. I expect there was a flood, as I said before, a flood. So you can see right here, these are all YouTube channels or videos, man, or articles. YouTube videos, articles, whatever. And as you can see, there's a lot. And they all had pretty much the same thing to say from different angles on the NVIDIA RTX 4090 FE, because no one can talk about any of the other AIBs like Asus or MSI or any of that stuff. So we're going to see those start to come out tomorrow because the embargo comes off of that. So I fully expect around midnight my time, well, anyone's midnight time, to start seeing those videos pop up when I wake up in the morning to see a lot of them. But so for those that don't understand what's going on, and I still don't understand this one, I'm in the US, y'all. I haven't been on a VPN to the UK in a long, long time. But it put the pricing in pounds on when I went to their site to pull this up. This morning, it was in US dollars at $1,599. My only guess is because I think the UK and the euro is technically in the future from our time, that the pricing is there specifically so they can see it and start being able to buy. Because you can't buy it today. You will be able to buy it tomorrow from places like Best Buy. Best Buy is the direct reseller. I don't see an availability issue to it. I, again, am not rushing out to buy a 4090 card. I will be getting a liquid cooled one. Now, one of the things we'll talk about during the course of this conversation is the thermal cooling. Steve's hardware, Gamers Nexus, Steve with Gamers Nexus. Those guys, there's some channels that do an amazing job breaking stuff down. What's up, Explorer? Just getting into it. And the thermals on this, I was very, very surprised because I have a 3090. And before I liquid cooled my 3090, I took it apart and replaced thermal pads in it to get better connectivity, and that dropped my Celsius on the 3090 by about 6 degrees Celsius, which is huge for the VRAM and everything else. But when they did all the testing, this thing ran between 70 and 80 degrees Celsius under load. Under load, that's freaking pretty dang impressive all in itself. But again, you know, you look at 70 to 80 degrees Celsius off that, and with the new Ryzen 7000 series running 90 to 95 degrees Celsius, that's a lot of heat inside of a case. So a lot of these benchmarks, they were saying some of them were open bench, and a couple guys did them inside mid-sized towers, like to simulate like we would see as a general consumer. And the temperatures weren't too bad. At the end of the day, you definitely have to liquid cool your 13th gen Intel processor, and you're going to have to liquid cool the Ryzen 7000 series processors, just at least that much to try and tame the thermals inside of your case. If you have a smaller case and you're trying to fit all this stuff in it, you're going to probably want to get a new case. The cards, well, the 4090 is shorter, the FE one is shorter than the 3090. It is definitely thicker, and then a lot of the third-party ones like the Asus, the MSI, the Gigabit, the PNY, and several others, the cards are huge. I mean, we had the one where I shared on Twitter where Jay's 2 Cents was doing a comparison of the Asus ROG Strix 4090 card, and it was dang near the size of a freaking PlayStation 5. And a PS5 is not small. It's big, man. I think the PS5 is taller than my computer tower. Now, it's not bigger than my computer tower, but it's taller than my computer tower. Yeah, and so we're going to talk about the cable issue as well. That's the whole reason why I want to wait on the power supply, which I wasn't thinking was coming out until you guys are going to get a walk into my park of what I have in my shopping cart, which I didn't think was going to be available until like end of December, January. But a lot of the UPS makers, Thermaltake here, already has one out. A 1650 watt power supply. And what we need off of that power supply, where is it at? Do we have a better picture? I know they highlighted in one of them. Yeah, right here. Is this guy right here, baby? This is what we need. Hey, Bob. That is what powers your new 4090 card. And that is what's going to power the new 4080 16 gig. Now, please do not ask me about the 4080 12 gig. I do not consider that a 4080 card. That should be a 4070 card. To me, NVIDIA got greedy on that one, and that's where I agree with what Hurtlocker said earlier. I'm not giving NVIDIA any more of my money. That is horse hockey on their part, and they really need to rename that one. But as you can see here in this picture, one of the things you're getting is not only the 12 pin to get power, but you have 4 additional sensor pins, and that's to help monitor and provide better frequency monitoring and power management between the power supply and the GPU. That said, though, as they did all their testing, we'll go ahead and just go straight over to did ours, where he did a lot of testing. And how much is $300 for a power supply, 650 watt PCIe rated power supply, gold standard. I think it's gold, might be platinum. $300 is pretty good. I mean, during the COVID hardware apocalypse, I saw freaking 1,000 watt power supplies hit freaking $300. So that's not bad. My biggest concern, and one of the reasons, primary reasons I'm waiting, there's a couple of reasons I'm waiting on buying hardware. All this stuff is new. The GPUs are new. The firmware is new. The motherboards on the AMD side are new. How these are going to pair up the cabling, like Dane pointed out here, with them going into, do I have a picture saved somewhere? Hold on. I think I do. I do not. Wait. Wrong folder. I could have swore I had. Is it on my Twitter, maybe? Hold on. Let's pull it up on Twitter. One of these days, I'm actually going to start getting followers on Twitter. I don't know. Yeah, right here. So this is the cable we're talking about. I know it's really bad background since it's black. But this part here plugs into the GPU, and then this plugs into your current power supply, the non-PCIe, so that like the ATX 2.0 or PCIe 4 power supplies, whatever you want to call them. And this will take, there's four slots in your power supply, and you're going to take a cable and plug it into each one of these, and that cable, extension cables by proxy, just going to go straight to the power supply. And so you can see the sensor pins here, one sensor pin here, one sensor pin here, one here, and one here. The problem is, one, those have a little bit of a weight to them. And like Dane was just mentioning, where is right here is the, and Jay's 2 cents pointed it out quite well in his video earlier and previously. This is on a wafer board. It's about like that thick, and it doesn't have a lot of support to keep it from wiggling. And if you bend what you're going to have to do, this cable to get it down and around, you're going to put some stress on the solder points, and there's a chance that you can break that off. And if you break it, they're going to say, no, we're not going to warranty it. So like a lot of people I've seen talking about they're going to run it underneath. If I was to run this to help alleviate as much pressure and go the way that I know the board have, because a lot of the guys have broken them down, is I'd actually run the cables over the top, because the board's going to be stronger that way. But I'm still, before I even put this cable on, I'm going to be getting to it. I'm going to massage it. I'm going to work this around a little bit. This thermal tape here is there to help strengthen and reinforce the pins going into the actual adapter plug. You're going to have to massage it and do some pre-bending on those cables to get them ready to go. Jay's 2 cents wasn't the only one that was talking about the cases. They have decent sized cases and everything. And even the bigger ones, the wider cases, the cables were right there up against it. So you're going to have to be really careful and very, very mindful of what you're going to do with those cables, how much stress and how much tension you're going to put on it. So just be ready for that one. They are going to run into so many issues with the cable, because people are, and there's a lot of people out there, they don't bother to watch these YouTube videos. They don't bother stopping into someone's geeky stream. They're just like, oh, it's the flavor of the month. And the whole reason I'm streaming this tonight is to try and educate people on some of the things to be leery of, and some of the benefits and some of the cool stuff that's coming out, and talk to people. And a lot of people are like, well, the 3000 series cards are just getting really, really cheap now. I'm just going to get a 3000. And that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. Most of the games out right now barely take advantage of the RTX 3000 series cards, or even the AMD cards, any of that other stuff, because it's just the games weren't designed with that in mind. But again, people like Dirt 8 Hour, I don't know if I'm saying it right. I think I butchered every time. He did a lot. So he did a lot with the power testing, and he also did a lot of testing with DLS on and DLS off. So let's see if I can. Is this Battlefield? So this is with some of the power changes he was messing with earlier, where he turned down the power, and just the performance increase. He didn't lose a lot. He still had 43, turned down the power at 23%. 23% power cut instead of running 450. I think he was down like 322, 323 on these ones, and he was still getting a 43% performance increase with the 4090 over the 3090. Freaking 43%. 43%. And he turned down the power. Turned the power down. But he also did, so you can see right here where he's looking at the wattages as he's doing stuff. He's playing with the clock speeds. I think he averaged between 2400 hertz and 2700 hertz on most of his testing. And you can see where he's so just testing various games. But again, what I liked about all the different videos, they're different approaches to it. And he really focused on a couple things. He really focused on power, how much, if you want down to 350 watt versus 450 versus 650 watt, which is in their overclocking phase. As you can see here, Gamers Nexus really hit on it. This is from the Gamers Nexus test stuff. Most of their stuff when they're running the 4090 FE, they weren't messing with power settings. Most of the time they were running 500 watt, right? For a lot of the loads and everything they were doing. But when they put into overclock mode, which is just a click of a button in the software, you're not doing any voltage changes or anything like that. You go into the software and you click on OC, right? I would show it on stream, but the software I have won't allow it to show on stream. Now, don't pay any attention to the 6666. It's Halloween. I'm guessing that's why they got that. But all of a sudden, they went from 496 watts to over 650. So the majority of the people doing these tests found that most of the time, an 850 watt power supply was sufficient. But they, once you start playing with it, if you start turning on the gaming mode, if you turn on the overclock mode, that's when you're going to start having the requirement for higher power. And that's not even talking about the fact, like, if you want to go liquid cooling, the draw that a liquid cooler is going to put, how much watt does a liquid cooler use? 150, 200 watt. How much is your processor going to pull? 280 to 350 watt. It all adds up. So slowly, all of a sudden, you max out your GPU or your UPS. That's why for me, I'm not going anything smaller in the system. I build anything smaller than 1200 to me is probably not going to be sufficient, because I'm going to be running a liquid cooler for the CPU, maybe running a liquid cooled GPU. I don't want to overheat my office. I'm going to be running the internal capture cards. I'm going to be running overclock mode. Not only am I going to be running the GPU in overclock, I will be running the 7950 in overclock, which means my RAM is going to be custom tuned, and I'm going to be running 6400 hertz RAM. So not only am I doing voltage and everything else, but I'll be using RAM overclocking, and a few other techniques. So my box will run a little bit further. And if you want to extend the life of your hardware, making sure that you manage the cooling appropriately is pretty key for that. So I'll be doing that. I'm hoping sometime in April or maybe by summer that I'll have enough spare money after I build my box to be able to get stuff to do some liquid nitrogen overclocking. I got really been wanting to do that for the past couple of years, and now that AMD has released the barriers on that, I want to try that one, and I want to try doing some Intel overclocking just to see what I can do out of it. Anyways, so we're going to come back to this one here. We'll talk more about the power. So you can see here Remeditive Ashes. He's doing some more testing here with the 4090 versus the 3090 Ti versus the 3080 Ti. And you can see the performance hits and increases they're getting. 358 watts, 53% performance increase. 441 watts at 114 frames, right? So 3090 Ti is getting wrecked. The 3080 Ti is getting destroyed. Before the 3080 Ti and the 3090 were pretty close. The 3090 or the 4090 is just kicking the crap out of them. So and I'm not playing these ones. I could play it and walk people through it, but that's just not something I'm going to do. He used PUBG in this video because it has really high frame rates and utilizations and stress on that. Again, he's using an i9 processor for all this. I don't hate on him. It's an i9. Who cares? I'm not biased. I mean, I used to be. At the end of the day, if a person wants Intel, a person wants Intel. I like AMD because I like multitasking, severely like multitasking, and use my game rigs for something more than just gaming, which is why you hear me go off on squirrel moments like now where I hate anti-cheat, like BattleEye. that if I'm running certain security tools that I use for my day-to-day job inside of my security labs and all that other stuff, they're like, oh, that's not great. You're going to violate. You're going to try. No, that's not. I'm not saying that. You have to show a level of trust and stay off of my system and stay in your sandbox while you're on my box. If you're not running, it doesn't matter what I have on my box. You know, there's a couple security guys that got their accounts banned, and they had to get them unbanned because they were using a software program called IDA Pro, which is doing advanced forensics. It wasn't on while the game was running. It was just installed, and Battle I had gone in and looked to see what programs had recently run. Shouldn't do that outside of their sandbox. It should be their running processes and whatever is hooking into those running processes. That should be the extent of it. And they got banned. They had to get unbanned because it's a tool for doing forensic work. But I digress. Anyway, so you can see here with PUBG. 473 frames versus 296 frames, 30 less watts, 30 less. And what is that? 40% easily. 85% performance increase. My bad, 85. So they found it through their testing that inside of the games, most of the games, now this is not at 1080p. The testing has to be at 1440 to 4K. 4K is where the rasterization and everything kicks in, where they saw the best performance, but at 1440 and up. When you're at 1080p, it's still more CPU and causing some other stuff there for bounds and bottlenecks. So this is where you're really starting to get to the point where you need to make sure that you're going to actually start taking advantage of the GPU at higher resolutions. And that does make a difference. But 85%. He did some testing with he was breaking down with DLSS off and DLSS on, the minute differences, the color depth, some of the chroma changes, just like Daylight Street said earlier. RDNA3, trying to get rid of chroma. We'll be talking about the chroma effects here, which is color levels and stuff. But if RDNA3 and DisplayPort 1.4 can get rid of that need and bring in true color, be all right with that. But he found better performance with DLSS mode on. Now, not all games have DLS 3.0, so some of the testing was with 2.0, and he found that testing with 2.0 and 3.0, and sometimes it was better to have it on and better to have it off. So you're really going to be depending on which game you've got and which ones the support is. So here you can see with DLSS off, what is this? I don't Plague Tale, not out yet. He got early access to it. We already know Plague already put on their website. We talked about this in one of the podcasts Jay and I did. They recommend nothing less than a 3060 card for the game. And you can see right there with DLS off on a 4090 of 74 frames per second. That's a 4090 card. And we're already seeing the performance changes that were brought in from that. And then you turn DLSS on for quality. Not performance, but quality. And he got to 145 frames. And when he turned it on performance, he went up to 195 frames. So with DLSS, NVIDIA wasn't lying. The performance increase that you're getting off of that lift it's pretty cool. Anyways, you can see here, 6% less with the power usage with DLSS off, but with 262% performance increase with it on versus it off. Okay. That's a big difference. So you can see here 4090 DLSS performance, 195 frames, almost 400 watt. These are frames per, what is this one? Average frames, power. I don't know what, frame, 1% minute. Okay. It's fine. I'm not really going to focus on that number. 3090 Ti, barely hitting 100 frames. And look at the wattage use on that. Freaking almost 460. So you're stressing the 3090 already. So these hackers, yeah, they are pretty valid. He did, and it'd be very hard stress to find the differences, but it's enough to tell. In here, he did Justice. He did a few of them, and he did a lot of these tests. As you can see here, 444 increase with it on the 4090 at 370 watts, 71 watts. Again, the 3090 Ti, the 3080 Ti, not even getting to 30 frames, and their power consumption is insane. I'm not sure what the Justice game is per se. He did test. Look at the differences on the quality here. You can see not so much in the detail, but the quality of the color and the wood grain detailing, the sharpness. And so you can see where he's got a device that's measuring the watts. And so that's what I was really interested. He does a really good job of breaking that stuff down consistently. This is where everyone remembers Cyberpunk coming out, popping cards, causing mayhem, and all that other stuff. But when he came in, and you can see with nothing just out of the stock, he getting this, and most people understand this about Cyberpunk, but 40 frames at 420 watts, that is not great. Now, there's a lot of crap going on in that game. There is an epic ton of detail in Cyberpunk. It's playable at 40 frames. Destiny is not playable at 20 frames, but I would say 40 to 50 frames is fine and acceptable. A lot of times when I was running it on my 3090 now, I get around 70, but I don't have the graphics turned up all the way, and I'm not running at 4K. And mind you, this is at 4K. Okay, you're not running at 1080p, you're not running at 1440. He's running at 4K in this test at 41 frames. That's playable. Not fantastic, but playable. But then he turns on DLS. Wait, where's it at? Yeah, right here. DLS. Goes up to 139 frames. Brute forces Cyberpunk into some pretty decent frames per second performance. 330 watts, 339% performance increase. 4K. 4K. The 3090 Ti can't get above 70. The 3080 can't get around 60. And he left the previous numbers up here for reference. So what I find, again, interesting in his test is how the power usage, the wattage compared to the performance. The 4090 is a beast, but it pairs amazingly well with DLSS. Okay, so I can't wait to see what the games that are coming out with true DLSS 3.0 support have. And do you think AMD will be competitive with their new GPUs? So the new GPUs come out in a couple of weeks, and I'll do a video breakdown on just like this one I'm doing now. So we'll go into detail on that one in a bit, but where they're going to compete, not so much on a streaming front because they don't have the AV1 encoder build out yet, or a reputation with like OBS and all of them. But because of how RDNA is designed, they have two encoders already. I think it's two encoder chips on the board. And the new 4090 actually goes and has two on theirs, and that's why they're breaking it down. And we'll talk about that when we go into Epos Fox's. I don't know why people use those weird names, but he does a breakdown on it. But yeah, it's another reason to wait. AMD's made huge strides forward with their driver development, which has always been the snafu for them. Intel is finding that right now. The ARC cards came out, and the cards, they had some construction concerns. A little sus. Again, Gamers Nexus did a really good job breaking them down. So did Hour here. The construction quality of them, but the driver was what's killing them the most. And VESS isn't out yet, which is their version of DLS and upscaling software. Think upscaling to help artificially boost the quality of the graphics and take some load off of the hardware. Do I think RDNA 3 will compete? This generation, eventually, I think they will. You're going to have the RDNA 3 and how well it takes advantage of the new DisplayPort in a year and a half. I don't think DisplayPort 1.4 is going to come out as quickly as people want it to come out. It's going to be more like a year to 18 months. It's not that it's hard to get onto the video cards. It's more to get the monitor support and the built-in support for it. So that's more like an 18-month kind of a thing. But I do think that they will eventually, if OBS and other streaming software platforms, other game developers, studios, software platforms, things like that, get to work more closely with AMD on the RDNA 3 and the support for it, and they get the drivers out there. Yeah, I think they can. I think they can truly, because of how the card's already broken down. What's up, Mr. CB? We're just getting the geek on, man. Just getting the geek on. I do think that RDNA will be able to support it, especially since they already have on the RDNA 3 cards, they've already broken out encoders into 2 different physical hardware components on the card. So they're breaking the components down and out, which is really great for transcoding. So like if you want to stream to Twitch and you want to stream to YouTube at the same time, being able to do that is fantastic, because they're now having 2 different hardware sets to do it instead of one and trying to bottleneck it all through there. The same is true with the new 4090. 4090 now has 2, but now it supports up to 3 transcodes. And they're asking for, on the Titan cards in the past, there was no limit to the number of transcoders you could use. They're trying to get that cap removed from the 4090 to go higher, at least to 4 or 6. So you could do YouTube, you can do Twitch, you can do TikTok, you can do Instagram, you can do Facebook, you can do Twitter, you can do all those different formats. And so what they're trying to do, and everything else. Quick non-technical question. CB, were we going to run attempts at your touch of malice tonight, my friend? Because I've got about probably 30 minutes worth of tech talk more to go, maybe 40, and then I'll be available to go do some attempts at it. Hopefully we get your touch tonight. Anyway, so we're talking about Dur hours breakdown on here. The performance increase is insane on things like Cyberpunk. Let's do it. Yeah, 30 minutes. Okay, that's awesome. All right, I'll bust this out instead of getting distracted here. So what they found, Dur hour found, was if you leave it at stock, you're going to run around 420 to 450 watt load. If you tweak your performance and you actually, now most users don't know how to do this. There's software to do it. If you don't know how, you can go play with it. Remember how to set the defaults and do a reset to default. It's perfectly fine. You're not going to really break your stuff. It's really hard to break these things now, and whatnot. But you can turn the power usages down, and you'll lose 6 to 9% on the performance, but you save that much on power. Now, for me, when I get around to getting my system in March, again, I'm going with a 1200 to 1600 watt power supply, so it doesn't really matter much. But I'm also doing a lot more things than everybody else. But while CB's here, CB, holy crap. So Epos Fox did this video set. I'm going to have to break this one down in just its own little thing. For OBS performance, we originally thought with the AV1 encoder that we were picking up around a 40% increase to performance. He showed, in the graphics on it, a 67% performance increase gaming and streaming from a single box, playing Spider-Man remastered at 4K and having no stutters. No stutters. With I think it was a 10-second replay buffer. You and I both know that's nuts. So my dream of being able to game and stream from a single system with super performance is getting there. Now, that said, when I build my new box, this one here is going to become a streamer box, and the new one's going to be my gaming box. But anyways, I thought you might be interested in that since you're here. So the performance increase is going to be insane. But yeah, I digress. Anyways, so Howard did a really good job breaking this stuff all down. And let's see. So he's coming into here and he's using Tech Power and a few others to monitor his settings, and he's using some other software to break down what his controls are, what he's actually doing his hertz at, and what the power consumptions are and everything else. So he control it. And then he graphed it. He did a really good job of breaking through percentages. Where's your trade-off at around between 60 and 80% frames per second versus power consumption? Is it linear? Is it dropping off? Around 375, you're averaging 120 frames. Whereas if you jump up to 512 or 520, 530 watt, you're only getting 10 frames more, 10 frames more. So where is the drop off here? Where is your thing? And if you just cut a little bit out, and it's noted here in the article that came out, at 300 watt on the 4090, performance loss is 9%. You cut that down from 450 down to 300 watt, and you take a 9% hit on performance. Some people are like, it's a big hit, 9%. 350 watt, it's only 6%, but you're cutting the power consumption down. You're not generating as much heat, much thermal. So in the long term of things, yeah. And all of a sudden, oh no, I'm only getting a 43% performance increase in this game versus a 50%. I think it's a trade-off. And now, that said, I'm probably going to go full tilt on whatever system I have. Let's go back to here. We're going to go ahead and close the Best Buy window out. I'll have all this stuff in the videos later and I can share, but he did a really good breakdown. You can see here, like with PUBG, he did a decrease 33% of the power draw, took it down to 283 watts, and he only took a 5% FPS hit. He's still at 440 plus FPS. He took a 5% hit. I don't know. I think I'd still love to be able to get 150 frames per second, inside a D2. But yeah, also remember on these 4090 cards, they're the first cards that are actually running true 100 teraflops, which means 100 trillion calculations per second on these cards. They're truly chugging tons and tons of data. So he did a lot of testing on these ones, and the temperatures, some of the configurations, some of the hardware. We don't need a sock, but anyways, so there's the hardware on that one. I wanted to break that one down. This is the one that intrigues me most out of all the videos I've watched. Again, I probably watched, I want to say close to 20 videos, read like 15 articles, and not all the videos made my 4090 RTX video list. Okay, if they made the list, that's saying something for them. And I feel kind of bad because I like Kyle from Bitwit. They used to do chat, him and Paul and all that stuff. Kyle's thing just didn't have enough information on it to make my save list. I watched it. I gave it a thumbs up because I thought it was really well done. But there was other stuff out there that I wanted more information on. And I wanted a different enough perspective to get it covered. And Epos Fox here did a great job of approaching this from a video editor, content creator, and streamer kind of mindset, right? So he was showing at 1440 what the performances were between the 4090 and the 3090 and the 3080 and the Titans, which is what the 90 series used to be. And you can see the performance differences and whatnot, 3D marks, all that stuff. I didn't really care much about those pieces because we've already had different videos, different articles talking about it, how much space it takes up. What I found interesting was here, though, because he also does photography. He uses 4K cameras. He uses an 8K camera as well. I don't remember where he showed it in here, but one of the things that I found super interesting is Photoshop products from Adobe. None of them, Premiere, Photoshop, Lightroom, none of them actually saw a true uplift from going from a 3090 to a 4090 for times for encoding, oh god, my brain just went for saving, compiling, and giving a final video. None of them showed that. had any type of improvement at all. You can see right here, going from a 3090 to a 4090, he gained like a couple seconds. That's nothing. But when you went to, oh no, we had to get past the ad. I'm sorry, y'all. To things like Affinity Photo, Davinci Resolve, which is programs that I use, you can see that there's a definitive change. And for a lot of the stuff, because he uses Davinci Resolve now, he started saving on average 8 minutes per video, and he has 6 YouTube channels. So, and he does a lot of video editing himself and everything. And 8 minutes per video, if you're checking out, say, 10 videos, that's a lot of time on a system. And that's CB can tell you. People that say that streaming and content creation is just a kind of a job, I'll tell you what, y'all, it is not. I have a respect for people that do it full time. I have a respect for people that stick with it for years. This stuff is not easy. You have to learn software. You have to learn creation. You have to learn editing. You have to be able to talk to people. All this stuff. And you have to stay current with it. And you have to be able to adapt to changing times. Like what happens when this game goes away? Did I build my audience on me, or did I build my audience on the game? Did I build it on a topic? Are they here for, all these different things? Where are they seeing me at? Are they seeing me on Twitch? Are they seeing me on YouTube? I have a huge amount of respect for people who do this. So being able to see that the 4090 is actually providing a huge increase to performance from an editing kind of a standpoint. This is why I told Scuda he should show up for this. And send him the video. This specific video, I think this one, I was really impressed with Gamers Nexus breakdown. But when I saw this video and how he approached it, this sold me on because I was kind of like, ooh, do I do RDNA 3? No, I'm going 4090 on this one. This time around, I'll do a 4090. This will be my last big build. Now, and I might upgrade the video card in the system I have now to a RDNA 3. We'll see when the card comes out, and also we'll see if my wife will kill me or not. We'll see. But the performance increase that you see off of those. So normal 4K project export, right? HEVEC. Using a 4090, 1 minute, 58 seconds to export the project. On a 3080, it was taking 33. What is interesting, the last big build for 2 years, every 2 years, every two and a half years, maybe. This is Intel's new card. It actually performs really well for video editing. I was not expecting, I didn't do a whole lot of reading on it because I knew I had a lot of problems. So I didn't do it, and I went down a rabbit hole for like 30 minutes earlier today when I saw this. But it has pretty good. But if you have like a 3080 and you're doing the normal 4K project export, and you go from 3.5 minutes and you shave a minute and a half, that's almost 40% reduction in your time of waiting around for your project. That's huge. Didn't get that out of Premiere though. Premiere didn't change. So you didn't get that benefit or that uplift out of Premiere. And this is where he took his Threadripper and he threw in the new 39, took out the 3090 and put in the 4090. And he went on to say some of the stuff that he was doing with all the plugins and all the filters and everything else. The 3090 was the bare minimum he could do to get those exports working in the encoding and everything else. And the 4090 chunked it. And when I use the term chunking, I use it as a data thing. That's for chugging through tons of data. We chugged through, just chunked it all the way out. So, again, Davinci Resolve. This is Brig. Now, let me explain something here. This is H264, which is the normal encoder. Like if you stream in OBS, or even I think Prism uses it, you're going to have, most people are going to be using the H264. This AV1 is the new encoder that OBS will support and works directly with NVIDIA. The RDNA 3 does not have this yet. Intel has the form of the AV1, but not really. So if you turn on dual encoders, you do get a performance increase. It is crazy, but he went down from averaging 8K intent project export of 24 minutes, right, to 17. Using the H264, and then 25, and you're like, well, that's a little bit of an increase. That's how much he's processed through and able to. You have to watch the video for them to explain it, but that's actually pretty freaking dang good for how that works out. And in live streaming, there's certain things in there. If you're doing tracking, and like you're using the green screen, not so much for what we do, but for like live performances and things where people are actually streaming live and have a lot of movements on stage kind of things like Amazon gaming, the game awards and IGN stuff and all that, where there's stages. I'd say TwitchCon, but I hear TwitchCon was dangerous. Hopefully, I don't think anybody in the CB house was hurt in the foam pit. But anyway, so they're being able to use surface tracking and motion tracking and all this stuff, face tracking, cutting the times down. Again, you can see consistent when you're doing content for posting to different sites, the more time you can save on each video project is huge. It's huge. And so that's what he approached on that one. And we're not even to the good stuff yet, y'all. We're not even to the good stuff. Okay. We're not to the good stuff. You know, Photoshop, no improvements, very little improvements across the board. Again, the Arc Intel A770 performing the best on it, but we'll take it. Lightroom, again, very little change. You have the 4090, it's right down in here in the middle. I don't know why Photoshop taking a while to adapt. Are they stuck in the past and they're just charging people for the same product because it really hasn't been updated in years? You can argue with me on that when they really haven't made any major changes to it. It still takes forever to chug stuff along and to do certain things in it. And if they don't update, there's other programs out there that are cheaper. The reason I like Affinity Series, Photo, Publisher, and I can't remember what the other one is, and Davinci Resolve, there's no monthly fee. You pay one flat fee and you're done, and they do everything and then some. It's a little different how the workflow goes, but like Scuda, who does a lot of video editing stuff for CB, he walked me through one thing. He wasn't familiar with DaVinci, but the timelines and everything else were familiar enough that he was able to help me get figured out what I was trying to learn. Done is creating a forced license. Yeah. That's why I don't use them, Joe. That's exactly why I don't use them. So then he goes on to show some other things. So Affinity Photo, again, is what I use. You can look at the performance increases. That's a pretty dang decent performance increase across the board. So he breaks the stuff out. Topaz Labs. I mean, he does a lot of stuff with AI. He does a lot of different cool things. If you guys don't follow him, I would recommend go give him a chat if you're trying to get in content creation. He has 6 different channels. This one is a higher level one. He's got a couple that goes deep, and then he got some does gaming and everything. I think you give Arc another 2 years, and I think you're going to see Arc doing a lot of robust stuff. I think we'll see. I think Intel's taking the right approach on this one. My only complaint about the Intel like processor, the 13th gen and all that stuff, is the size of the processor. They need to get more micronized. But again, you can see the differences here in performance. 0.313 seconds per frame versus the 3090, which is 0.353 seconds per frame, or 3.68, depending on what you're trying to, 3090 and 3080. Now this is the Titans, was what these were a long time ago. It was just dedicated to video editing and stuff like that. That's a heck of a card. You know, getting this times down is really big. There was another one in here. Yeah, only one resizing, rescaling. The 3080 drop, you're saving almost a minute between a 3080 and a 4090. So again, the Arc, though, for its cost, a lot of people don't have money like $500 or $600 to go spend on a card. A lot of people have $200 or $300 to go get a card. And if that card can play a lot of the games like a 3060, the A770 is on the performance par with the 3060, the 3060 Ti for $300. That's a hell of a deal. Sure, it's got problems. You get to give them 6 months to stabilize driver issues. I mean, we actually can build decent current gen computers. Like the one guy that just built helped him get the parts. He just built a 5800X 3D with a 3080 Ti MSI card that he picked up for $700. He built the 5800X 3D with the 3080 Ti card in it, 32 gigs of want to say 4,000 hertz RAM and a 1 terabyte thing in it and a few other things. And he built it for under $1,800. I'm thinking about replacing the 1080 Ti in my current rig right now with an ARC 770 and letting Matt run this system once I build the new one. You know what? I think it'd be fantastic. I don't see any problems with that whatsoever. You might have some driver stuff, but I don't see any issues with that whatsoever. You're not going to have any power issues because it's fully compliant with current hardware and older hardware. It's backwards compatible. So I don't see any issues with that at all. So, and again, for those that are just joining, I did a lot of research today. All these are videos and articles that have been published just on the 4090 Founders Edition cards today. And that's why I'm trying to make sense of all this stuff for people tonight. So anyways, he did some breakdowns, flow frames, everything else. I recommend watching this, how to use build stuff to do 3D rendering. Oh, great. We have another. I hate ads. I had to turn off my ad blocker for this because it wasn't allowing certain things to work. But when we get to, we're gonna skip to the good part here. Around 13, he starts talking about the AV1 encoder and its performance and how it impacts us as a streamer and as a content creator. It is so. This is a single system, live streaming and gaming from a single system. Now this one here is 1080. He's talking about, okay, but then he goes in and he starts showing handbrake, time to encode 4K, 30 frames per second. And you're seeing, the 4090 performing 57 seconds instead of a minute and a half. The A770 is wickedly in there. It's crazy. And you come back down to the slowest preset. It depends on how you're using the card, but the 4090 covers the gambit on it. Davinci Resolve, he comes back into average encoding speeds. Again, doing the max speed with 1080p, it's up there. The AV1 max speed at 1080p, where you start seeing, and a lot of people keep thinking, oh, if I'm going to get a 4090, it's going to kick the crap out of 1080p. 1080p is a bottleneck because 1080p is really more CPU driven and more of a CP bind. You get into a 1440 and 4K and all those in 8K, you really start getting onto the GPU, right? And ARC supports ARC. Yes, it does. I believe it supports ray tracing. I'd have to double check. But where you see all of a sudden huge uplift. Look at this. So this is the performance at 1080p. Look at these numbers at 4K and 8K on a card for encoding. He's not coding. It takes this long for freaking 1080p. Hey, baby. But you go to 4K and 8K and your times go that far down. Awesome. And this is where he was talking about Spider-Man. Okay. With the 4090, no recording, just 1080 or 1440p, native resolution, right? Average 14.4, right? And he has one with the recording on, and the dogs are in here now. My daughter came in, and the dogs followed her in. So then all of a sudden you can see with the recording, this is what I was telling CB earlier, this is insane. He's recording on a 4090, playing the game at 1440, playing the game at 1440, using the AVI upscaled to 8K. So he's taking a 1440, upscaling using the AVI encoder to 8K, and bringing it back down to 4K. You have to watch the video to understand why he's doing that. But he's still getting kickback performance times. Just insane performances. Still averaging over 100 frames per second. How freaking cool is that? Gaming and streaming on the same box. That kind of a performance with a game like Spider-Man that's super detailed, it just boggles my mind. And he goes in to talk about some of the differences and how the encoding works now. Things off DLS2 on, DLSS3, the performance. See, look at this performance change. This is Cyberpunk, by the way, with DLS2 versus DLS3. 100%, 236% performance increase. So the stuff is there. The worthwhile, is the money worth it? If you're just gaming, you're doing nothing but gaming, get a 3080 Ti card for $700 or $800 while you can, because they're going to sell out fast over the next couple months, and then start looking at your 4000 series cards. I can't wait to see what the benchmarks are on the 4080 16 gig. But again, great video to watch. Great things are coming for it. Do I think that we have a worthwhile purchase for getting a 4090 card or a 4080? Yes, I do. Again, I am waiting for the power supplies to be tested. I'm not going to go out and rush out and buy the hardware the day that it comes out, because I've seen what happens. Just not something I'm going to do. Anyways, now we're going to go to the Gamers Nexus video. They did a good breakdown of different things. What I liked about Steve is they really focused on thermals. This here is their thermal bench, where they've got temperature probes connected to various parts of the GPU to monitor the thermals. And when they came back and got done with all their thermal testing, they were able to say that this card, the 3090, did a much better job of managing thermals than the 3090. Huge nail. So 3090 FE. NVIDIA is actually getting good at making their cards, and that might be, again, is why he had the picture of an EVGA on the way out, is if NVIDIA is starting to make this quality of a level of a card, is there a need for them to have third-party AIBs? I still think so. Different aspects, different kind of things, but I don't think that'll ever go away. Anyways, so he talked about the thermals. He showed how they took some screenshots and matched it all up, and then they did the benchmarks for the thermal testing. I won't spend too much time on that one. You guys are probably getting a little bored of it. Again, thermal testing, GPU, hotspots, memory, stock, royal stuff. It's no real big differences under load. So it was decent temperatures, as you can tell. These are in Celsius. That's being able to stay between 60 and 80. And they didn't change the fan curves at all. Yeah. Not trying to hurry up. I see you can wait. It takes them a few minutes. And this is where they see this is a mess. This was talking about earlier. That's the adapter cable, y'all. You can see a little flex going on here. Can you see that flex going on? How that card is that cable with the weight is doing a little bent, putting a little stress on that adapter going onto the AIB. I'd be very concerned about that one, because you're going to have these 4 cables coming off. They have to have the 4 cables adapters off of it. They're looking at frequency changes and everything else. And they did a really good job of breaking that down, finding out that the pins, those 4 pins I showed earlier, monitoring each one of those whips, did a fantastic job of distributing the load, so there was no hot wires or anything like that. But yeah, I would still be very concerned about the amount of weight on that one, and over a prolonged period of time, if you've got that sagging going on, it's just a matter of time. So I do worry about that one. That's why I'm waiting for the PCIe 5. So it's a single cable going in, a lot less weight, a lot less stress on there. But this is them just telling us that they didn't find anything. One of these cables didn't get any hotter than the other one. It didn't have any hot spots. It did a really good job of balancing the load for power across the board. They did find that you could get to boot if you only had 3 of 4 plugged in. But if you only had 2 cables plugged in out of the 4, it didn't boot. 4 is recommended. You can't get any higher than, I think with 3, I think he said you couldn't go any higher than 350 watt load, which is not great. So you're not getting full use of your card. They did a great breakdown. They were showing the peaks. I won't get super geeky on that aspect of it, but they did a really good breakdown. He did a really good conversation, just like Jay's 2 cents did, of where the stress is on this cable, why you need to be careful with it, and how it's going to impact the longevity of your 4090 card. This is where the power and the wattage came in from their loads we talked about earlier. In their type of testing, because they weren't messing with any of the settings like Durat Hour is or was. They averaged 500 watts or so and peaked out around 660, 670 watts, higher in power supply. That's why everyone like Asus came out and recommended a 1,000-watt power supply for the 4090. I'm going to go with the 1,200 watt because I'm going to go with 2 liquid coolers. Can I skip this ad? This ad will, and I cannot end it. 3 print optics prime support figure. Well, I still don't think that's going to, because I don't think you're going to have the room for it. I really don't with what you're trying to do. Merryman, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. I am a geek streamer. I talk about hardware and cybersecurity, the absence of it inside of gaming. And then I play a lot of different games. Tonight we're talking about the 4090s and what to expect. Because there's a lot of people out there that don't understand all this stuff. They go what's on the box on the shelf. They go, someone said, some streamer said something. There's not a real good date breakdown. The biggest thing for me is if I'm going to give information, I'm going to cite and reference every information source that I have. So I try to make sure everyone understands that one. Anyways, going back into this one. What is this? This is Warhammer Benchmarks. Again, average frames is 124, almost 125. Stock over the 3090 Ti, which is only getting 78. So you're going to get CUDA core. Yeah, dude, the huge increase in the CUDA cores. But as we were talking about earlier, when Dur 8 Hour was messing with the power settings, they could have tuned lower. You could have taken about a 6% performance hit and gone, instead of having to ship with the 450 watt, they could have shipped with 350 watts, so a lot less power, and still had instead of 45 to 85% performance increase on most games, it'd have been like a 40% to 75% performance, which is still insane for what we're trying to do. But I get it. We'll just go in and manually tune our stuff. For those of us that want to mess with the actual manual overclocking, you can. There's software that comes with the cards that let you do some form of overclocking. When I do get around to getting one, I will do live streams. Because I'll be able to do that, because I'll have this box here. It'll come as a streaming box. I'll build the new one, and then I'll be able to stream the tuning on that one, so people can see what actual live overclock tuning and performance tuning does in the system. It'll be fun to go with that one. But they go through a lot of the different benchmarks. They were talking about the games. They went in and broke down the difference between the 1080p versus the 1440, the 4K, and the 8K. Why most performance hits happen on the 1080p is because a lot of times when you're 1080p, you're bound by the CPU or the performance of the CPU, not the GPU. So you keep that in mind. And the whole reason that they're coming out with the rasterization comments, which is your quality of your video rendering at different resolutions, is this card starts to do well at 1440. In its performance over the predecessor 3090 and 3080 Ti, and shines at 4K. That doesn't necessarily mean that the streaming of 4K is going to be great on some of the older games, because they might not be designed to handle it, like Destiny 2 just won't do it. The 4090 might be able to brute force it, but again, you look at things like this is the F1 Forza, was it F1 2022 at 4K, averaging 230 frames. At the low at 126, that's still pretty dang good. These numbers, that's a huge increase. 230 over 6950X at 133. Do we have a 3080 Ti in here? There's 3080 for the win at 111. I don't see a 3080 Ti in this list. Anyways, they were testing the 4090, not 3080 Ti. They go in to break down the power spikes across them. Again, more breakdowns of what the performances are when you manipulate power and temperatures. They did all sorts of different games just to show the differences. Which one is Rainbow Six? Over 600, almost 700 frames. That's insane. That's cool. So overall, I could show this all day long. They were talking about the thermals here with the ray tracing, the impact of ray tracing. They didn't do any FRS or DLSS testing. They're going to do that in a different video. But with ray tracing on, control 4K playback stuff, it's really good to be able to see those kind of performance increases, 30 to 33% on a 4090 over a 3090 Ti, almost, I'd say 45%, 47% in performance over a 3090, and just going across the board. Here's your 6950 XT. Is so the bigger question at the end of the day, we can spend all day just going through all this stuff. Is this really great technical breakdown? Again, I'll post all this stuff on my YouTube when I do the video out. They did a great breakdown of how the hardware works. It's a lot of reading. If you want to get into it, you can. But talking overall with the overclock and everything, is the 4090 worth $1,600? If you just plan on gaming, I'm going to say no. A 3080 Ti will do you just fine for right now. Now, once the new games come out, like Requiem, maybe Starfield, with a lot of details and depth of field and whatnot, games like Grounded, which are small install but filled with so much detail because of the grass blades and the bugs and everything else and the water reflections and the ray tracing, I would say a 4080 16 gig or a 4090 was definitely worth it. The 4080 16 gig is supposed to retail for $1,300. The 4090 is coming out at $1,600. It's a $300 difference, but seeing the differences here, we won't get benchmarks on the 4080 16 gig for a couple of weeks. So if you're not in the market to buy it right now, you can wait. I don't know what the comparisons are going to be. I'd be really intrigued to see what the performance differences are between a 4090 in game versus the 4080 versus the 4090. The power differences they were coming out with, we now have some more information clarified on that one. 450 versus the 3090 450, and you can scale it down. So I think the fear of what we're going to have for a power supply is less. Everyone's like, oh, we're going to have to 1200 to 1600. 1200 to 1000 to 1200, I think will do you just fine. And 850 would probably be, as I said before in previous ones, that's about as low as you want to go. I don't think you're going to be able to support the cards any lower than 850 watt. Again, you've got things like how much power do you have to get to your CPU? How much power do you have to get to the GPU? How much power do you have to get to the motherboard? How much power do you have to get to the coolers? All these other things, it all accumulates. And I still think if you full out max out your card, an 850 watt card is going to be lacking. But again, the cards, extreme performance, lots, 100 teraflops. This is almost 101 teraflops, freaking 100 trillion transactions per second. That is insane. The amount of calculations and work that card can do. Again, I'm not just speaking out of my butt here on this stuff. These are all videos and articles I read earlier. Well worth it. So, summary. The GeForce RTX 4090 FE card is $1,600 in the US, $1,700 £1,700 in Europe, UK. It becomes available for sale tomorrow. You can get it through Best Buy, Newegg. I think even Amazon will have some. I'm not sure. Best Buy is, I believe, the NVIDIA official distributor. You will get, on average, in games between 40 and 80% performance increase in most games, if not more, in video editing, content creation, as far as encoding and exports and all that stuff for compiling your videos. you are going to have around a, say, at least a 50 to 60% performance increase in most of them. Yeah, I wish, Sky, I might build one out of Legos and give that away, or 3D print one. I can 3D print one with no guts. But so you're going to see a lot of improvement there from a gamer streamer standpoint. If you're looking to do it from one rig, a lot of people don't have the money or the space to have a gaming and streaming rig. An all-in-one, not only you reduce some of your power consumptions and thermals and stuff, but it gives me hope that a 7950 or 7900X, along with the 4090, with the improvements they've made going above, with the AV1 going above 40% increase. I think OBS just came out and said 40% because that was the safe number. Most of the videos, most of the benchmarks from the guys that really went into it showed over 50% on average performance increase for the games that they were playing and streaming. And these were guys that were doing 1440 gameplay with upscale to 8K back down, doing all sorts of weird stuff, trying to max and get the best type of video quality for putting it to YouTube or to their stream. Now, the reality is I'm not streaming over at 1080p. I'm gaming most of the time. I love to game at 4K. It's an amazing thing to do. Most of the games I have to stream or game at 1440 or 4K and then stream at 1080 because it just the OBS and the encoding, the transcript, stuff like that doesn't handle it. The 4090 now having two different hardware sets on the card to do the transcoding and everything like that really takes that off. It has a max, again, allows up to 3 transcodes, so you can do YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook or TikTok formats or short YouTube Shorts videos. So you could actually set it up if you wanted to while you were streaming. You could do a YouTube stream and you could have it streamed to something that doesn't publish, that just does it in the format for shorts, and then just go grab instead of having to convert all that stuff, you can just grab the section of the video you want. You don't have to mess with anything, and all of a sudden you got your content for your shorts. Overall, for me, the 4090 is a great card, but it has to be something that you're going to use for more than just gaming to be worthwhile. If you do more than just game, if you're content creation, if you're doing 3D printing, rendering and graphics and Blender and all these different things, then I would say the 4090 is definitely worth it. If you're just going to be gaming and then maybe gaming and streaming, wait for the 4080 16 gig benchmarks to come out in a couple weeks. And then you'll know, because $300, that's when you get down to it, $300 is a chunk of money. It's like the power bill every month. But if you're building it, you have a one-time purchase, $1,300 versus $1,600 to get huge performance difference. I don't know what the performance differences are. We won't know till the benchmarks are out when the 4080 16 comes out. And again, as I said before, I don't recognize the 4080 12. I won't talk about the 4080 12 as a 4080 card. Dumbest thing in the world. So that's where it's at. This video will be up on this channel as a VOD. I will put it out on the YouTube channel, probably as a full unlisted, and then I will post I will go through segment by segment and break those down a little bit more in detail to give better, clearer understanding. I will also find out some more information on the A77 Intel card and its comparisons for an entry level for dependencies and everything, although it's separate from this. But that was a good question that Joe had, so I won't let that and go. So anyways, that's where we're at with these ones. The 4090, I think they got the card right. The 3090 was a good card. I think the 4090, they did a great job with it. I think where NVIDIA took a huge hit on public relations was how they marketed the 4080 12 gig and their pricing. I think with the market as it is, and with everyone being down, I think we'll see the 4090 drop here in a couple months from $1,600 down to $1,500. We'll see the 4080 16 gig probably drop down as low as probably $1,150. So be mindful of that. Keep an eye on the market if you're not in a rush. Wait to see what's coming out, what you can get, and then we can go from there. Again, I'm going to hop off and go help CB get his touch of malice. If you guys have questions, hit me up here. Hit me up on Twitter, GMD Geek. Hit me up on YouTube. If you guys can, if you're not, I'm over on YouTube. You can give me a follow over there. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel. But if you want to still watch me get screwed up, I will be over with Mr. CB Gray here. Are you streaming on Twitch or are you streaming on YouTube, CB? Thanks, CB. We're going to go to, you'll be on YouTube. So let me get YouTube channel here. Hold on. We'll be over here. I don't plan on streaming on Twitch after I get off of this. We'll be over here hanging out with CB, trying to get his touch and mouse out of King's Fall. But again, I appreciate everyone that hung out tonight. You guys are fantastic. And if you have questions, let me know. If I don't have the answer, I will try to find the answer out for you and get it back to you. Again, I love you guys, and I will see you all in game. Stay safe out there. And if I see you in Micro Center or something,